Alright, next up is Mortal Kombat 2. This was actually my very first arcade game. I bought it back in, I think, year 2000. And it came out of Bowling Green, Ohio. I bought it on eBay for like 150 bucks. And it actually worked and everything, but it was, I don't know, this game was made in 1993, so it would have been like, I don't know, 7 or so years old, so it probably wasn't earning any money in the arcades at that point, which is probably why I got it so cheap. Back then, you actually could get cheap games. But this game is pretty unique. It's Mortal Kombat 2. They made a Mortal Kombat 1, but this one kind of expanded on the original Mortal Kombat, and I don't know if it was more popular, but certainly as popular, I think, as the original one. And this one, I had a pretty special place in my heart for it because I grew up playing it. I would have been, I don't know, probably 16 or 17. And my cousin and I, we used to go grab a hamburger or a hot dog or something and lunch. And then next door there was an arcade. Well, they had this game in the arcade. And whatever we had left over from lunch, we'd go play the heck out of this stupid thing. And back when this game came out in the early 90s, the internet wasn't really a thing. So like all the finishing moves and all the friendships and all the crazy stuff that you could do in this game, you really didn't know how to do any of them. So you would see somebody do something like with Shang Tsung, he'd turn into somebody else, or somebody would do a finishing move and you'd be like, holy cow, how'd you do that? And they'd tell you. And if you were smart, you'd like write it down or something, or just remember it. But I remember learning a bunch of the finishing moves, and it was pretty cool in its day. It was originally set up to play for 50 cents, so most games were still a quarter back then. So this one was a little pricier than most, and you could go through a few bucks pretty quick playing this stupid thing, especially if the arcades, you can go into the settings and either make it harder or easier, and you can turn all the blood off, and you can turn the fatalities and stuff off too. I think it was one of the original games that they made up the, whatever that scale is, the parental advisory for video games. So some places would actually turn the blood and the fatalities off so you couldn't do them, but the one I grew up playing, you could do all that stuff, and that's kind of what kept you coming back to this game, was trying to figure all that stuff out. And you can either play two-player or one-player. One-player, you play the computer. Two-player, you can play against one of your friends. And yeah, this was my very first arcade game. I bought it, like I said, off of eBay, and I had it in my apartment in Columbus for a number of years. And then I was moving around a bunch, and ended up moving it to my parents' basement. Well, when I got the house, I had this little extra room I wasn't sure what I was going to do with, and I was like, oh, you know what? It would be cool to put my game in there. So my parents wanted it out of their basement anyway, so I went and picked it up and brought it in here and started playing it again, and forgot how cool of a game it was, and I ended up playing the heck out of it. And one day I came in and turned it on, and it didn't come on, and I'm like, oh man, this thing's broken, and I didn't know anything about how any of these things worked back then. So I'm like, you know what? I am an electrical engineer, so I should be able to figure out how to fix this thing. Well, I went on the internet, and long story short, the power supply had gone bad. And they still sell those, so I went and bought a new switching power supply for it and put it in, and sure enough, it fired right back up. Well, at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do a little restoration on it, and I did a little light restoration, painted some stuff, the coin door, and redid the control panel, put new joysticks and stuff on it, and it's been in here ever since, and people like to play it, and it's fun. When people come over, they'll play each other and stuff, and when they get all good, I'll usually go, hey, I'll play you, and I know all the finishing moves, and I've been playing this stupid game for 20 years, so not too many people can beat me on it. So once they think they're good, I humiliate them on this machine, and then rip their spine out or something, which on this game you can't rip a spine out, but you can do a lot of other cool stuff. One other thing about this machine is it is in what they call, I think they call it Midway's like universal cabinet, and it was an option for the operators back in the day. You can see it's got the It's got side art on it, and it's got some like graphics on the side of it. But the Universal cabinet, I think, was cheaper than like the full one with the full side art down it. Which I think this one, they probably put other games in these Universal cabinets, but I'm pretty sure this one's been Mortal Kombat the entire time. But yeah, it's the Universal cabinet and not the one with the full side art, which I kind of wish it had the full side art, and I could always do that on it, but I don't know. This is how I bought it, and it's kind of how I've kept it. It's pretty much all original for the most part, and yeah, so that's Mortal Kombat, and like I said, it was my first game, and that one I'm gonna probably have a hard time selling because it's the game that got me started in this stupid hobby like 20 years ago. So it was the first of many bad decisions I've made as far as collecting these things. But there it is, Mortal Kombat 2, 1993 Midway.